I'm Ben Arp, and this is one of the videos that I promised about identity theft, specifically the problem with passwords. Every service that you use that has an account has a username and a password. And the username is something that you might share publicly. It might be your email address, or let's use the example of Twitter. It could be your Twitter handle, and everybody knows what that is, and that's okay. But a password is something that you're supposed to keep a secret to get into the account. That way it's you that's getting into the account and not your friends, your family, your colleagues, or random strangers. This is the way that accounts have been authenticated for a really long time. The problem with passwords, though, is that we default to things that are easy to remember. And so some people use the password. They just use the word password as their password. And most services won't even allow you to do this in 2020. The use of password doesn't work or shouldn't work because somebody else could guess that very easily. The recommendations that we were first given around passwords are don't use things that are easy to guess. Second piece of advice that we're given around passwords: don't use a password that's too short. And the reason for that is it takes a long time for a machine, a computer, to parse through all of the different combinations of a password that they could then plug in and try. So imagine trying password A, password B, password C, password AA, password AB, password AC, and you cycle through that combination. Every character that you add significantly increases the amount of computing power that would be needed to log into an account. That's where we get this concept of a strong password. Typically, it has a length requirement, it has to have an upper and a lower case, it has to have a number, sometimes a special character. Sometimes it can be difficult to remember, and so what a lot of people do is they use the same password over and over again, right? They make one strong password and then they use it over and over. And I'm guilty of this. I've done this in the past. I'll tell you about a problem that I had with that here in just a moment. Those pieces of advice are decent advice, but they don't address the problem that people are actually experiencing in 2020. The problem that we experience in 2020 is that somebody actually knows our password. They may know the password because they got it out of a data breach, where somebody got all of the username and passwords from a big company or a website that you shop or something like that. And they also might know it from having a Keystroke Logger installed on your computer. And a Keystroke Logger is exactly like it sounds. It's a program that logs every keystroke on your computer and then submits that data up to somebody who installed it. Those can be put on your computer through viruses, or if somebody were to hack into your computer, they could install one. And I would say that's less common than the data breach method, but nonetheless, in both scenarios, somebody is getting access to your real password. They have the full thing. They don't have to guess. They don't have to try twice. They can just put in your username and password and log into your account. Who cares if somebody logs into your Marriott account and sees how many points you have? Is that really a big deal? Do I really need to keep that account secure? Well, it is a big deal, and the reason it's a big deal is because of something called password stuffing. Password stuffing is where somebody takes my username and password for my Marriott account, and then they copy them and they paste them into another website to see if I use the same username and password. Maybe some of you watching this are realizing, oh, I use the same username and password on multiple websites. And so it might not be a big deal if somebody gets into your Marriott account and looks at how many nights you've stayed at a hotel, but it might be a really big deal if they got into your bank account with the same information. This problem, password stuffing, is what we try to avoid by using different passwords for every website that we go to. And we try to avoid this happening to us by changing passwords regularly. So if somebody gets your information from a data breach 3 months ago, but you changed your password today, it doesn't work anymore. And when a password doesn't work, they're just going to throw it out and not use it anymore because it's not valid. So if you think about a data breach where you have 100,000 usernames and passwords, or 1 million usernames and passwords, you're not going to keep trying ones that aren't working. You're just going to move on to the next one. Regularly changing your passwords and using different passwords for different sites is critical for you to manage your identity online in 2020 and beyond. To make this a little bit easier, there's a technology called a password manager. iPhones have one built in called Keychain. Android phones likely have their equivalents depending on which Android phone you're using. And then there are third-party services like LastPass, and Dashlane and a variety of others that will help you to create strong passwords, to change those passwords at a regular interval, and to use different passwords for all of your different websites without you having to remember all of them or write them down. So this is the primary problem with passwords in 2020. People don't actually guess them, and they don't use a brute force login attempt to get them, but rather they take them either through keystroke logging or through a data breach. They use the real username and password, and then they use it over and over again to get into different accounts. I had a problem with this personally last year. Somebody used my username and password to log into my Chipotle account. Of all things that they could log into, they picked Chipotle. And once they were logged in, I had a card saved on file, so they were able to actually place an order for burritos. I think they bought $50 worth of burritos, and then they went to Chipotle and picked them up. It was 2,000 miles away from where I lived. I had not traveled there, and the only way that I found out about it was I saw on my credit card statement that there had been recent activity at Chipotle. And so I logged into my account and I saw, this is not me that's using my account. And so I had to call my credit card company, and they canceled the card, and I had to call Chipotle, and it was a whole ordeal. But I realized that this happened because of password stuffing. My Chipotle password wasn't something that I thought I needed to have a unique password for, and so I just used a password that I've used before, and I learned my lesson. I now use a password manager and change my passwords regularly. But this could also happen to you. Imagine if somebody gets into your bank account or they have access to your debit card. It can be a really big deal, and it can have negative implications on your finances. This is why you need to protect yourself online in 2020 so that you don't experience identity theft. Now, there are lots of other aspects to identity theft other than just stealing a password, and we're going to continue to cover those in subsequent videos. So like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to this channel so that you'll get notified of future videos.